The chandelier lights glimmered above the grand hall, but no sparkle could hide the cruel scene unfolding at the center. "You dare to accuse me?" Maya cried, her voice trembling yet sharp enough to pierce through the polite chatter of wealthy guests. Her uniform was still damp from polishing the marble floors when Adrian Vale, the millionaire host of the gala, pointed his finger at her with icy arrogance. "You're a thief," he declared, his voice loud enough for every camera to catch. Gasps erupted. Maya's son Leo clutched her skirt, his small hands shaking. She pleaded, her eyes glistening. "I cleaned the mess you made of your life. You don't get to destroy mine." But Adrian only smirked, raising a glass of champagne as if to toast her misery. Two security guards stepped forward, their polished shoes echoing against the marble as they seized Maya by the arms. Leo screamed, "Don't hurt my mom!" He tried to push them back, his little fists pounding against the unmovable wall of muscle. Guests whispered, phones lifted to record the spectacle. Maya twisted, desperate to shield her son, but the guards dragged them both across the hall. Adrian's cruel laughter filled the air. "You are nothing here. Remember that." His words struck harder than the guard's grip. And just like that, the towering doors of the mansion slammed shut behind them, leaving Maya and Leo out in the cold, pouring rain. The thunder roared overhead as Maya knelt on the gravel, pulling Leo into her arms. His tears mixed with the rain on his cheeks. "Mama, what did we do?" he whispered. Her chest burned with rage and sorrow. She smoothed his wet hair and kissed his forehead. "We did nothing wrong, my love. Nothing." The weight of humiliation pressed on her shoulders, but inside her heart, a flame began to spark. She looked up at the mansion's glowing windows where shadows of champagne glasses danced and whispered a vow only the storm could hear. "He thinks I am nothing, but he has no idea what I can become." From the corner of her eye, Maya noticed movement at the edge of the driveway. A woman, tall and graceful despite leaning on a cane, stood beneath a black umbrella. She wasn't gossiping with the others or sneering in amusement. She was watching Maya. Their eyes met for a fleeting second, and the woman gave the slightest nod before turning away, disappearing into the rain. As the sound of the gala's music drifted faintly into the storm, Maya felt a strange certainty settle in her chest. Tonight was not just an ending. It was the beginning of something she could not yet name, but the question burned deep within her. How? How could a single mother, thrown out with nothing but the clothes on her back, ever rise against a man who owned everything? She didn't have the answer then. All she had was Leo's trembling hand in hers, the sting of injustice and a quiet ember of defiance that refused to die. And what Maya did next would change everything. The rain had not stopped when Maya guided Leo through the narrow streets that night. Their shoes were soaked, and the city lights blurred behind the curtain of water. As she reached into her pocket to pull out a handkerchief for Leo, her fingers brushed against something unexpected. A small envelope, soft but sturdy, had been slipped there without her noticing. She froze. Inside, on cream-colored paper, a single line was written in elegant handwriting. "You deserve a different door." Beneath it was a business card, embossed with the name Evelyn Hart. Maya's heart pounded. The mysterious woman with the cane had left her a lifeline. But what kind of door was Evelyn speaking of? And why her? The following morning, Maya sat with Leo at a small diner, feeding him pancakes while staring at the card. She didn't have the luxury of trust. She had been betrayed too many times. Yet she couldn't ignore the feeling that the storm had carried more than just humiliation. It had delivered a sign. When Leo asked, "Mama, what will we do now?" she smiled weakly, hiding her own fear. "We'll figure it out together." She tucked the card carefully into her bag, not ready to call, but not ready to throw it away either. Something told her this name would matter. Days passed in uncertainty. Maya cleaned apartments, picked up night shifts at laundromats, and scraped together enough to keep a roof over their heads. It was during one of those exhausting evenings that she received a hushed phone call. The voice on the other end was trembling but familiar. "Maya, it's me, Rosa," her old friend still working inside Adrian's mansion. Rosa's words rushed out, filled with urgency. "He set you up, Maya. Adrian blamed you to cover for the missing charity funds. He's been stealing, and the staff whispers are getting louder." Maya gripped the phone so tight her knuckles turned white. Her humiliation had been deliberate, calculated, a cruel smokescreen for his crimes. For the first time since that dreadful night, Anger began to outweigh fear. She wasn't just a victim. She was a witness to something larger. Rosa warned her, "Be careful. He suspects I know. If he finds out I called you—" The line cut off, leaving Maya staring at the silent receiver. She pressed her forehead against it, tears welling in her eyes, torn between gratitude for Rosa's bravery and terror for her safety. But underneath all the fear, one thought blazed like lightning. If Adrian destroyed my name to hide his lies, then I will uncover them. That night, as Leo slept curled up beside her, Maya opened her worn journal, the same one where she used to write shopping lists and household notes. Instead, she began recording every detail she remembered: the missing invoices, the unexplained deliveries, the times Adrian had ordered her to lock certain rooms before events. Page after page, she wrote with fury and precision, her pen cutting across the paper like a sword. She didn't know how, but she knew this was the beginning of her fight. And when the time came, these pages would be her weapon. And listen, if this part of Maya's journey is making your heart race the way it's making mine, then you belong here with us. Every single day we share powerful stories like this one. Stories that lift you up and remind you that resilience wins. So if you want to follow the next chapters and never miss a moment, subscribe right now and join this community. And while you do, let me know in the comments where in the world you're watching from. I'd love to hear your story too. Maya stared at the business card on the kitchen table for hours before she finally reached for the phone. Her hands trembled as she dialed the number, each ring echoing in the silence of her tiny apartment. When a calm, steady voice answered, Maya nearly hung up. "This is Evelyn Hart," the woman said. Swallowing her nerves, Maya whispered, "This is Maya Torres. I think you gave me your card." There was a pause, then Evelyn replied, "I was hoping you'd call. Come see me tomorrow. There's something we need to discuss." The next afternoon, Maya found herself in a sunlit office that smelled faintly of old books and polished wood. Evelyn sat behind a wide desk, her cane propped neatly against the corner. "I watched what happened that night," Evelyn began, her gaze sharp yet kind. "Adrian Vale is not as untouchable as he wants people to believe. Men like him use humiliation as a shield, but shields can crack." Maya frowned. "I'm just a maid. I have nothing." Evelyn leaned forward. "You have truth. And with truth, you can build something bigger than revenge. You can build a future." Evelyn outlined opportunities Maya had never imagined. She explained how property liens and unpaid taxes often forced estates into auction, how public records held clues to hidden corruption, and how a cooperative business model could give workers dignity and collective strength. Maya listened wide-eyed, struggling to keep up, but something inside her stirred. For the first time, she wasn't being dismissed or silenced. She was being treated as someone capable of more. Evelyn slid a folder across the desk. "Seed money," she said simply. "Enough to start something small. Let's see what you can do with it." That evening, Maya shared the news with Leo over a modest dinner of rice and beans. His eyes lit up when she told him, "We're going to start our own company." He tilted his head, curious. "Like a superhero team?" She laughed softly, brushing his hair back. "Exactly like that. Except instead of fighting monsters, we'll fight messes. And maybe bigger monsters too." His giggle was the first spark of joy she had heard from him in weeks. And in that moment, Maya realized Evelyn had given her more than money. She had given her hope. Within weeks, Maya's cleaning cooperative began taking shape. She reached out to other women she knew from her old jobs, single mothers, widows, and workers tired of being treated as invisible. Together, they signed their first contracts with small businesses, and soon after, a surprising call came. A major bank was interested. Maya nearly dropped the phone when she learned the bank wasn't just any bank. It was the very one holding Adrian Vale's mortgage. The irony was too sharp to ignore. And what the banker hinted next made Maya's pulse race. If someone showed up at the right auction with the right paperwork, things could get very interesting. The words from the banker haunted Maya for days. The right auction, the right paperwork. She couldn't ignore it. One evening, after putting Leo to bed, she pored over public property records on a borrowed laptop. Her fingers shook as she scrolled through documents, her eyes scanning lines of legal jargon she barely understood. Then she saw it. Adrian Vale's mansion was listed with overdue historic property fees. If left unpaid, the estate would be quietly placed on the auction block. Her heart hammered. This was no rumor, it was written in ink for anyone to see. Maya pushed back from the table, stunned. The same house where she had been humiliated, the same floors she had scrubbed until her knees ached, could actually fall into her hands. But a surge of doubt rushed in just as quickly. How could she? A woman who barely had enough to buy groceries some weeks possibly outbid anyone at an auction. She buried her face in her hands, torn between disbelief and fear. Yet deep down, a whisper rose. What if? What if this was the different door Evelyn meant all along? When she told Evelyn, the older woman didn't look surprised. She simply nodded, her eyes gleaming with quiet satisfaction. I thought you'd find it, Evelyn said. And yes, it is possible. But don't think only of taking the mansion from Adrian. Think of what you could build with it. Think bigger than revenge. Evelyn outlined how a community property could attract donors, grants, and business partnerships, how it could become a living symbol of justice. Maya listened, her chest tight with emotion. For the first time, she envisioned not just payback, but purpose. That night, Maya sketched ideas on loose sheets of paper while Leo colored beside her. She drew rooms filled with children learning music, apprenticeships for young workers, safe spaces for mothers like herself. Leo leaned over, curious. What's that? She smiled through tears. It's a dream, Leo. A dream that one day this house won't belong to someone cruel. It'll belong to everyone who needs it. He placed his tiny hand over hers, nodding solemnly. Then we have to win it, Mama. His certainty felt like a blessing. Days later, Rosa risked everything to meet Maya in secret. She arrived with a scarf pulled low over her face, glancing over her shoulder as if Adrian himself might appear. From her coat pocket, she pulled out a crumpled photograph of a ledger page. Maya's eyes widened. Adrian's signature scrawled across transaction lines tied directly to the fake charity. He's bleeding money, Rosa whispered. He's desperate. That's why he framed you. Maya clutched the photo, her pulse racing. With proof of his crimes and the mansion headed toward auction, the pieces were aligning. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was preparing to strike. And Adrian had no idea the storm he had unleashed. Adrian Vale was not a man who ignored whispers. When rumors of Maya's small cooperative reached his ears, he laughed at first, until he realized her contracts were growing, and her presence was no longer in the shadows. With his reputation already fragile, he struck back. He hired a slick PR agent to spread lies, painting Maya as a manipulative woman who exploited other workers. Overnight, articles appeared online, neighbors whispered, and one of her biggest clients suddenly canceled their contract. Maya stood frozen in her kitchen, reading the slander with trembling hands. He's trying to break me again, she murmured, her throat tight with despair. The lies cut deeper than she expected. Each canceled job meant fewer meals, more fear, and sleepless nights. Leo noticed the stress in her eyes, and one evening, as she sat staring at unpaid bills, he climbed into her lap. Mama, are we running again? His innocent question shattered her heart. She kissed his cheek, forcing a smile through tears. No, Leo, we're not running anymore. This time we're arriving. Her voice was shaky, but for the first time she truly believed her own words. It wasn't just about fighting Adrian. It was about standing still and claiming her place. But Adrian wasn't finished. On the eve of the auction, a devastating blow landed. The bank froze Evelyn's bridge loan, citing technical irregularities. Without those funds, Maya couldn't even place a bid. She sank into a chair, numb, as Evelyn delivered the news. He's pulling strings, Maya. He knows the auction is his last defense. The older woman's eyes were fierce, but Maya's chest felt hollow. So that's it? She whispered. We lose before we even start? For the first time in weeks, the ember of hope inside her threatened to die. That night, she sat awake by the window, staring at the dark city beyond. Her journal lay open, pages filled with evidence of Adrian's cruelty. The proof was there, the dream was drawn, but the path was blocked. She felt like she was back on that rainy night, thrown into the cold while the doors slammed shut. Her fists tightened. I won't let him win again, she whispered to herself. Yet the question lingered. How could she fight when every weapon was stripped away? The answer came unexpectedly. Evelyn returned the next morning, her cane clicking against the floor as she entered Maya's small apartment. There's one last chance, she said firmly. She revealed a pledge from a network of women-owned businesses, willing to release funds if Maya could prove her cooperative truly had community impact. The catch, She had less than 24 hours to deliver evidence strong enough to convince them. Maya's heart pounded as she realized the weight of it. It wasn't just her future at stake, it was every woman who had joined her, every voice silenced by Adrian's lies. And she had only one night to gather the truth. Maya wasted no time. With trembling hands, she called Rosa, her only lifeline inside Adrian's mansion. "I need proof." "Real proof," Maya whispered. Rosa hesitated, fear thick in her voice. "If he finds out," Maya cut her off. "If he wins, he'll keep hurting all of us." "I can't let that happen." After a long silence, Rosa agreed. That night, she gathered signed statements from staff who had endured Adrian's cruelty, photocopies of unpaid wages, and accounts of stolen charity funds. She smuggled everything out in a plain envelope and handed it to Maya with a trembling smile. "Use it. End this for all of us." Meanwhile, Evelyn reached out to her network. The women were willing to fund Maya's bid, but only if she showed undeniable proof that her cooperative wasn't just survival, but a force for justice. The pressure was unbearable. Maya sat at her table staring at the evidence Rosa had risked her job to bring. "Was it enough?" Doubt gnawed at her chest. Then Leo tugged at her sleeve, holding his small tablet. "Mama," he said shyly, "I made something." On the screen played a video he had recorded, his voice innocent yet powerful. "My mom makes people feel safe. She says no one should be scared at work. Please help her." Maya's throat tightened as tears blurred her vision. The next morning, Evelyn presented the package to the network: Rosa's testimonies, the financial evidence, and Leo's heartfelt video. The women listened in silence, some with tears, others with clenched jaws of determination. When the final recording ended, the room erupted in nods and murmurs. "She's not just building a company," one woman said. "She's building a movement." Within the hour, the pledge was approved. Funds were transferred. The weight that had crushed Maya's chest for weeks lifted like a heavy curtain pulled away from the sun. Maya wept openly, holding Leo in her arms. "We did it," she whispered, pressing her forehead against his. Evelyn placed a steady hand on her shoulder, her eyes fierce with pride. "No, Maya, you did it. You refused to bow, and now the door is yours to walk through." Maya looked down at the fresh confirmation papers, her name printed beside the bid amount. She could already picture Adrian's face when he realized the maid he had once thrown into the rain was about to step back into his mansion. Not as a servant, but as an equal. But Evelyn leaned close, her voice a warning. "He won't go quietly. Expect him to fight dirty at the auction." Maya nodded, her spine straightening. The fire inside her was no longer just an ember, it was a blaze. "Let him fight," she replied softly. "I'll be ready." She gathered the papers, the testimonies, and the memory of Leo's voice. Tomorrow would decide everything. And she knew deep down that the battle was no longer just about her. It was about every single person Adrian had silenced. The auction room was nothing like the glittering galas Adrian once hosted. It was small, tense, and smelled faintly of paper and old wood. Maya sat quietly between Evelyn and Rosa, her hands folded tightly in her lap, the confirmation slip of her funds tucked safely in her purse. Across the room, Adrian lounged in his chair, wearing the same smug grin she remembered from that night. He didn't even bother to look at her. He had sent a proxy, a sharp-suited man with slicked hair and a silver pen, to do his bidding. Adrian believed he had already won. The bidding began low, almost anticlimactic. Numbers were called out and Maya's heart pounded with each raise. She lifted her hand calmly, just as Evelyn had instructed, never too eager, never too late. The proxy kept countering, raising the stakes higher and higher. Maya held steady, refusing to let fear dictate her moves. The tension thickened, the air heavy with anticipation. Then it happened. The proxy raised a bid beyond his authority, waving a check that violated the auction's lien rules. Gasps rippled through the room as the auctioneer slammed his gavel. Invalid bid. Adrian's smug smile faltered for the first time. All eyes turned to Maya. She made her final bid, measured, precise, and within the rules. Silence filled the room as the auctioneer raised his hand, the gavel hovering in the air. Bang. Sold. The word echoed like thunder. Maya had won. For a moment she couldn't breathe. Evelyn's hand squeezed hers. Rosa covered her mouth to keep from crying, and Leo, sitting in the back, jumped to his feet and clapped. Maya closed her eyes, the image of that rainy night flashing in her mind. The humiliation, the cruelty, the slammed doors, all of it dissolved into this single, powerful moment. If this victory gave you chills, imagine living through moments like this with us every single day. This channel is a home for people who believe in justice, in courage, in the power of standing tall. Don't just watch, be part of this. Subscribe now so you never miss the next story. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from, because I love seeing our community spread across the world. The following day, Maya returned to the mansion. The gates that once locked her out now opened at her command. Security guards, uncertain but respectful, stood aside as Evelyn presented the deed. Maya walked slowly up the steps, Leo's small hand in hers, her heart thundering. The same foyer, where she had been dragged like a criminal, now shimmered beneath the morning light. Adrian stood waiting, his face pale, disbelief clouding his features. "This is impossible," he hissed. Maya lifted the deed, her voice calm but strong. "No, Adrian, this is justice." For the first time, Adrian had no cruel words, no champagne glass to raise. He was stripped of the only power he had ever known: fear. Maya stood tall in the center of the mansion, no longer the maid, no longer the victim. She was the owner. The silence in the hall was deafening until Evelyn's cane tapped once against the marble floor, marking the end of Adrian's reign. Maya looked around at the place that had once been her prison and whispered, more to herself than anyone else, "We're home." The days that followed were unlike anything Maya could have imagined. The mansion, once a monument to arrogance and cruelty, began to change under her hands. Workers replaced broken chandeliers with bright, simple lights. Empty halls filled with laughter as children from the neighborhood arrived for art and music classes. The grand ballroom, where she had once been humiliated, now held rows of desks for apprentices learning trades that would give them futures brighter than they'd ever dreamed. The house was no longer a fortress for one man's ego. It was becoming a beacon of hope. Evelyn visited often, overseeing legal clinics that offered free advice to struggling families. Rosa became the operations manager, ensuring no worker was ever treated the way they had been under Adrian. And Leo? He ran through the halls with friends, his giggles echoing against the marble walls, his drawings now pinned proudly on the bulletin boards. Every corner of the estate told a new story, one of resilience, dignity, and second chances. The mansion had been reborn, not just in structure but in spirit. Adrian, meanwhile, faced the consequences of his greed. With Rosa's evidence and Evelyn's relentless legal pressure, he was forced into community service tied directly to the very foundation he had once exploited. He cleaned, repaired, and served alongside those he had once looked down upon. It was a punishment far more fitting than prison, a daily reminder of the humanity he had denied others. Every time Maya saw him sweep floors or stack boxes, she felt no malice, only closure. The balance had been restored. One evening, as the sun dipped low and golden light spilled across the mansion's windows, Maya and Leo stood by the foyer's wide sill. In her hand was the same brass key she had clutched in the rain months ago, the key to her old room, a reminder of all the pain. She set it gently on the windowsill where the light warmed it until it glowed. "This key doesn't belong to the past anymore," she whispered. "It belongs to our future." Leo smiled, resting his head against her side. "We're home, Mama," and for the first time in her life Maya believed it. Not just a home of walls and windows, but a home built of courage, justice, and love. She had been thrown out with nothing, humiliated before the world. But she returned not just as the owner of a mansion, but as the keeper of something far greater: dignity. The story that began in rain and cruelty ended in sunlight and hope. And Maya knew, deep within her heart, that the storm had never defeated her. It had only prepared her to shine. And if Maya's journey touched your heart tonight, then this channel is your home too. Here, every day, you'll find stories of courage, family, and triumph after the storm. So don't stay on the outside. Subscribe now and stay with us for the next story. And before you go, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I'll be looking for you there.